Welcome to the Practice Podcast, conversations probing the nature of practice. I'm your host, Dave Fearon, co-author with Peter Vale of the digital book on Practice as a Way of Being. Find it at mylibrary.world. And now to our show. This is to introduce Elisa Tuijnder. I have a terrible time remembering how to pronounce her lovely name, but I have no problem remembering a wonderful conversation, which you will soon hear, because she is just on top of things, on top of change, on top of happiness at work, of culture. She is a podcaster, interested in management 3.0, all kinds of future-focused, human-centered things that if I were to start my career over, I'd be right next to her. And we'd be doing some of this work together. Because she's very bright and has a great laugh. And that's who we like to spend our time with these days and into the future. So here is someone whose name I keep getting wrong, but I'll again never forget the fun I had in this conversation. And I'm really going to go for Elisa Part 2, coming soon to your podcast network. Here she is. Just meeting Elisa Tuijnder in a few minutes before I started this recording, I feel like smiling, and I smile a lot, but I have a bigger smile. And partly is because in her backdrop is a wonderful sign, happiness at work. And the Management 3.0 podcast is her podcast. This is the Practice Podcast with a question mark. Why? Because I am always trying to understand the nature of practice. And every time I think I've got a little bit of a hook on it, it's wonderfully gets more interesting and I have to learn something else. So the happiness at work. Now, that has a couple of meanings, Elisa. Happiness at the workplace, which I assume is where your consulting is a lot done in your speeches, but also happiness as a practice, happiness at doing its job, if you will, to lighten up people, bring people closer to each other, and just make a day at the end of a day go, oh, this is a pretty good day. I was happy. So tell me about your inspiration in bringing happiness at work to us.
Well, it's I think as with it is with all these things, and we were talking earlier about the cardinal. I now have made all of the things that happened in my life. I feel like they've led to the Happiness at Work podcast, but probably it was more coincidental than that, and I just put the meaning on it afterwards. But I was always a person that wanted to help other people, and I didn't know at first exactly how I should be doing that. And I ended up going down the route of anthropology, which I absolutely loved. But, the lofty ideals of going to build wells in Africa, or, some kind of things that we were basically fed by the television didn't end up being very real or good, actually, on the ground, and kind of was more the next thing in neocolonialism than actually helping people. But it taught me a lot, and it taught me a lot around, also it led me towards a path where I was helping people in democratizing knowledge sharing, predominantly because I was working for a UK university in the anthropology department, and they asked me a lot, like getting more innovative with talking with our colleagues in Africa or anywhere else, right? And because we at the time in the UK had a system, or it's still there, but it wouldn't allow us to bring many colleagues over. So pre-pandemic, we were already looking for ways to connect over the internet more and ways to collaborate.
Mhm.
And so then when the pandemic came, I sort of had a little leg up, and
Yeah,
a lot of people, a lot of people came to me and asked me like, "Oh, we still want to collaborate. We still, and at the time it was predominantly around academia. We still want to do our conference. We still want to do these things. So how can you help?" And I did that, and I really loved it. I really loved that I was actually finally feeling like I was really kind of doing something, and that led to the space with Management 3.0, who then asked me to organize a conference. And a lot of the things, and it felt like coming home a bit because I dabbled in the consultancy before I went to university, and it was a bit like coming home. And I started researching positive psychology again, and I started, looking into all of these happiness things and in the workplace, and I felt like, oh, actually, for the first time, I feel like I'm actually on the ground. Like not for the first time, because I said just now about the knowledge sharing, but it was a continuation of really feeling good that I was really making a difference for people in their day-to-day lives, because we spend so much time at work. And my shifts, my ideas around happiness have shifted since then. And that's what they always do. But it's sort of for me like that lofty ideal I had as a teenager, or like, the ideologies. And I feel like I can actually do that now. And that's how I got there and stay with it. Yeah.
That's a lot. That's a lot of biography in a very fascinating few minutes. I think of when I looked at your LinkedIn page, I looked at myself and I said, Dave, we're digital people now. Elisa and I are digital people because I doubt very much in this life we'll meet each other in person, but now we're having a conversation, and in everything else from when I started to work with Peter Vale has been embedded and aided and made to work digitally. I still can't say that word, digitally. And even the book that when Peter Vale, who was my teacher, mentor, and good friend, had his last book was called On Practice, and he had it pretty shaped up, but he couldn't quite finish it because his health was declining so rapidly. So we collaborated, but we had to do it. Initially, we tried to do it by sending emails back and forth, which was it's like a horse and buggy. It was awful slow. So I discovered Zoom and equipped Peter, who was in his early 80s at the time, with a headset. And I said, now, Peter, we're going to be able to, I'll put the book up on the screen. We can look at it together. We can edit in real time. And it was like stepping into an absolutely different way of being. Both Peter and I became digital beings in this sense. So when it turned out that we finally found a publisher who was totally digital only books, not ebooks, digital only. I have the first book up there for my library because I wanted everything about the digital book, and I'm going to get back to you. I promise you. In just a second.
I will wait for that.
what the digital book can do. First, I collaborated with Theo Ford Stigler, who was so patient with me, and we could do it through Zoom and look at pages. And as the book evolved, as I was adding to Peter's writing and all that, you could see it just growing. Now, you don't necessarily see that. You send a paper manuscript into a traditional publisher. You might eventually see galleys, but it's very much out of your sight. Whereas at any moment, I could just sit here, click on wherever my book was in its progression, and I could see it. Now it's been done, but it's not done. That's the cool thing about digital, because not only can I go in with Theo and I can say, look, I want to change this, I want to add this, and we have a whole tool set called a waffle, where on every one of the 32 conjectures that Peter created about practice, there's episodes of the podcast connected, or videos, Peter's writing, some of my writing, and the book is just alive.
Yeah.
it's alive.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
so I suspect that since you look very much younger than I, that you're going to proceed for a long, long while in the digital universe, creating and teaching and doing the things that you love to do. Is that not so?
That is absolutely so. And I think we don't even me myself, I don't understand what it's going to look like in 10 years. The we don't even have I was trying to talk about quantum computing and AI stuff coming back in, and we didn't even have the words, we didn't even have the language yet developed to sort of grasp the concepts that might be coming in. And it is scary, but it's also exciting, I think, sometimes, because I think while you were talking there, the growing amount, like you could connect with your former mentor and collaborator, but that's across the world. It's a
Yes.
really true leveler. It's no, you can't hide the knowledge anymore. It's very much evening the playing field. And there is obviously still people who have easier access, but especially now also with this AI tools that are coming in, somebody yeah, that never used to have access to a wealth of knowledge all of a sudden has sort of also a sparring partner, and can put it, can ask it, like, what would a person, I don't know, in the United States, in where you're living, what would they say about this? And just
Yes.
the concepts that are going to be able to come out of that, just the creativity, the sparking of new ideas, and connecting new dots, is big. And we don't know yet where that is going to go. It has potential to go bad, but it also, I'm hoping, there's so much bad in the world at the moment. Somehow, some objective AI with data, knowing what we're doing, might
Yeah.
actually be a good thing, and taking the emotions out.
Can you see the tears in my eyes,
Yeah.
Elisa? These, I know it's hard to see because my eyes are so droopy, but I'll be going to 81 in a couple of weeks. And as I hear you talking about the future of connecting dots, of being able to spar with people, to test ideas, do you see, we call it this, what do you call it? I want that, but I have to, I don't think I'm going to make another 20 years. So I'm going to make most of what I do have in terms of health, because we're right on that verge. Now, I got really grumpy about AI.
Yeah,
A
we
few
all did, I
podcasts
think.
back, I'm saying,
Yeah.
wait a minute, I'm for HI, which is human intelligence. That's what I've
Yeah.
worked on my whole career as a teacher.
Mhm.
Human intelligence, and but the force of our economy here in the States, at least, is moving behind the software makers. That it's behind the huge data management farms, and the energy it takes to consume in order to have an AI application work. The money's going very fast that way, and going right away from our K-12 schools, from my public university,
Absolutely. Yeah.
and I'm thinking, hey, there is something going on here. Yes, I'm excited about what the technology has done for us in putting us together in a digital stream of consciousness, if you will. I'm really bothered about the at least the perception that humans have reached our limit of capacity of what we can offer at work, and as soon as they can figure it out, will be replaced. So I want to go back to happiness at work, because you're looking at the
Yeah.
workplace, and you're also, I'm sure, witnessing the phenomenon of AI not just coming in as a tool to lift people's productivity and performance, but to replace them. And that does
Yeah.
not make people happy.
No, absolutely not. And I think I recently, actually a few days ago, went through this with my partner, who's an audio engineer, and he spent his whole life, practicing music and learning instruments, and loves doing it. And same with his best friend. And there was a new AI that came out, and they were sitting listening to it, and they were literally crying. It was just like, I don't want to say it, but this AI does 10 times better job than I do. and it was a it was a life's work that was sort of swept away in one go, and that takes a while to kind of digest, right? So you've been playing guitar since you were 2 years old, and actually no one's ever going to ask you to come and do that in a studio anymore because, yeah, the AI will do it for free and faster and better.
Free and click, 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 done and done. Get out the whatever it is, and you can't call it a record anymore. They start making money on it. Whereas a gifted musician might have to take 3 or 4 or 5 recording attempts and to get the right things in. And this is the story, isn't it?
But the funny thing that they did forget there, and I mean, not the funny thing, because they know this, but at the time it was like, if AI would only just make always this music, it gets good, don't get me wrong, but it's too good. Unfortunately, and we don't like things that are too good. My favorite music, if I think about it, there's somewhere there he doesn't sing quite right, or the voice breaks a little bit. Anything that is too perfect, we actually don't really like. So an AI won't, as far as I am aware, in my limited knowledge of how they evolve, isn't going to be able to kind of really mimic exactly that experience. And it's also, even us as people, we can't really sometimes know what's going to hit. Or why something is a hit, right? So it's sometimes the psyche that we have around why we find a certain type of music really nice, and others might be way more perfect and it's perfectly on pitch, and we don't actually really know why that other one that it was a little bit more off and had a bit of a brassy thing going on, and maybe the cable wasn't even plugged in correctly. Then all of a sudden comes a global hit. And so I know this is very scary. And I also know that we have to be more ethical around it, because that is the biggest problem. It's not necessarily the tool. It's predominantly what we humans is what we humans and ethics and the ethics around it. But it also allows us to, kind of do cool new things, and it frees up some of the nitty gritty stuff to be more creative again. And I know that is really hard if you say that to a person that is now losing his job. You don't care. So there needs to be protection on the one hand for workers, and there needs to be times where people can shift and explore other things. But hopefully, and I don't know whether that is going to be the case, it takes away the not so fun stuff in your job, because it takes the automation away often, the repetitive things, not always, right? But yeah. I don't know where we're going to go with it, but I'm scared because it's humans and we don't tend to have a good track record with these kind of things, but it also has. But
I think, though, that there's various societies around the world are organized to provide anything from a nice, solid platform under our feet, like in Holland and other places where, they call it socialism, but I call it sanity, where if you are bumped off the log, you don't sink all the way into the mud, you pop up, and then there's systems in place for you to be retrained or to find where you can be valued as a human again. But there are other places, and there's lots of those places here in the States, where there's no safety net at all. You're out, you're all the way down. And so we have tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of homeless people in this so-called prosperous nation who, if I were, as you must have felt when you went to Africa and thought, I could do some good here, if I were to go back out into those places where the homeless are, I don't know what I would do, except as a teacher, I would try to ask, and I have to say ask because they want money from me, many of them, but I would say, what are you good at? And they, what? No, I mean, really, I know there's something, there's something that you've always been good at. You just don't have a way to get paid to do it right now, do you? No, I don't. Okay, so you kind of have to start there from the person who's furthest down and to say, okay, let's kind of work it out. Now that's a one-on-one thing, and that's more of a teacher's instinct to look past the the unhappiness and try to hook into what do you do that when you're doing it makes you really happy, back to happiness at work. So that could be a frontier that for Elisa Tuijnder to help people find ways to get past the AI substitute who's been giving him an elbow,
Yeah. And so you cut out a tiny bit there, but so I don't know exactly what the end of it was, but
I
do
gave
want
you the meaning of life in 3 words.
I know. I'm gonna have to I'm gonna have to listen to the recording later.
Do you see the aura that came around my face and the sunlight beam that came in and said, David, now give Elisa the meaning of life, and you missed it.
I miss it. But it's actually funny that you're saying that's the meaning of life, right? Because that's actually where I was almost gonna go. Because we might see, or maybe I'm just repeating what you're saying, but we might see a real change in what our meaning is. And we've also been fed socially and behaviorally, and because it was necessary to go, do certain things for our survival. And maybe our society, maybe our raison d'être, literally our being, is going to be totally different. And I don't think I'm going to be able to see that anymore. But things are going really fast. And when we're soon enough adding more layers of complexity that I can't even, like quantum and these kind of things, that I don't even have the words for yet, then or the language hasn't caught up yet, then maybe we're going to really start stretching our, the reason why we're here, the reason what we need to do, the reason, maybe in 2 generations, nobody works. And then we were the silly ones that used to do these things. And everyone still has purpose, but they find purpose somewhere else, because purpose is definitely something that we need.
Purpose is the constant,
but whether that is linked to actual work where we then put monetary value to, maybe that will change. And whether that's going to be, or maybe, we're all going to be very, very sad and living, through our, robot overlords. But I don't think we know. We just really don't know, because I think we don't even have the concepts, the neural pathways, the communication around it yet, to fully grasp what we have done here as well, because we did make the tools, as far as I'm aware.
What you have really brilliantly articulated is why we need agile leadership, to go into another one of your themes, because leadership is basically waiting for a moment of uncertainty. Leadership is pending at all times, in the individual or shared, like we are right now, sharing. It's pending, it's waiting.
Mm-hmm.
And then someone says, I don't know what's ahead. We don't even have the language for it. The leadership impulse is, well, let's create some language. Let's look around the corner. Let's drop what is no longer economically useful in the world, and let's see what we can lift up. But leading at that point is the impulse. Now that separates leading from the figurehead leaders that we've had in our histories, which are kind of a mythology. Like what we need is another Churchill. What we need is another blah, blah, blah. No. What we need is leading. And we need it. And the other point is, and it needs to come a lot quicker and have more impact, more agility, if you will. So we've got to have people whose spirits are there and whose intellects are engaged, and go for it, right? So now, what is agile leadership to you? Because I just gave you a definition of what I thought it means to me.
What do you thought? I mean, agile I think is really the word agile. So people have made these kind of meanings around it with frameworks and agile with a big A. That is actually, for me, not what it's about. Yes, these frameworks exist, and sometimes they have their space, and some companies do very well, others completely flop because that was never for them. But agile, and that is the irony actually there then, right? Because agile is just all about being able to have the structure or the non-structures in place to be able to act upon, that you're not getting stuck in months of bureaucracy, in unnecessary layers of management, that people that actually on the ground that know what should be done are not waiting for somehow, somewhere, to make a decision that then needs to come back down the chain of command or 15 papers and all of these kind of things. It was somehow probably started off at somebody being really annoyed at bureaucracy. No, I know where it started off. It started in software, but I can imagine that could have also been there. And somehow we have not been able to get rid of very big bureaucratic apparatuses, but it's just a way of being more efficient and less frustrated, I guess, about
it started
do
in
things.
software in part because of what we just said earlier, that the pressure for more technological, more software solutions, more machine learning, all of that, the pressure, which is fairly recent. I mean,
it's not that long ago. I know the guys who wrote it. Yeah,
but that pressure on the labs, the laboratories. Like I have a friend who spent some years in Cambridge, Mass. As an agile software developer, and he made it clear with the defense contracts and other big ticket items that they had to work 24 hours a day.
Yeah,
and he did. He burned himself out. That was the pressure. So what they had to do then is say, wait a minute, we can't keep doing this. Pass it up the line, pass it down the line. We've got to get it pulsed out there fast so that we can fail and learn what we need to do next. So that was his story of moving into the sanity of agility. Because
sanity, but also again how you use it. Because my brother, who's also a software engineer in the private sector, not for guns, but for tomatoes and these kind of things. But he sees the word agile as just another way for him to get controlled, like some other way of. And he obviously never made it. I mean, he's 24 or 25, but so he never saw the faxing and or maybe he did, but didn't register it, right? So, but then it becomes, because what we do, we then add things to it, make it more complicated, want to put more frameworks in it again, because that's what's basically happening at the moment. More rules, and we don't take the other rules away again. So it actually becomes super complex again. And then it defeats the purpose or the movement where it started. And there is something that we do as human beings that is, there is obviously lots of study around it, but we always have to do black, white. We have to sort of we make these divides because that's the way we make sense of the world around us. And that doesn't actually mean that things are black, white. Everything is always a bit gray anyway.
But we need to,
I know, right? They've never been, but we feel the need to do it like that, right? And it's very funny. The same thing now with to pick up on what you said earlier. There, like people need these things to hold on to. Like now, we don't even know who the enemy is, or when, and we're actually going back again. So people sort of trying to find sort of these conservative values again, because everything's too fluid. Too fluid is also not good, because then too agile, we get scared. We don't know what the next point is going to be. And I don't know what the answer to that is, because all of these things are in movement, and we're not going to stop it. But as long as we put some awareness to them,
I think the answer is digital. Now, here's my point. Moving back to, I lived through all the years that people say we got to go back to because life is better.
They weren't,
and everyone should be a white male Christian, and the rest of people don't count, or they're not even people. I mean, I lived through all of that. As a sociologist, I studied it, tried to understand.
Absolutely, yeah.
But what I'm saying to you now is that what digital represents is just enough structure. If you think about, look at zeros and ones.
Absolutely. That's the whole thing, actually. Yeah.
Zeros and ones that can be clicked into, written into an algorithm.
Mhm.
And there it is. Now, there's nothing permanent about zeros and ones, nothing. But they give you they drive a machine. They act like a human being as a robot. So there's just enough
substance to hold on to. I like that.
That can move something forward, which is what leading is, just enough. But then it can quickly be reconfigured, or it can be programmed to end.
Yeah.
And something else will take the place. So what we have to do is shift our heads out of the machine minds that were cultivated over the last 2 or 3 centuries,
Yeah.
and where there's such a thing as permanence, which is not true. But it gave us that feeling, okay, I am an aristocrat, and my family is going to inherit my land and all my wealth. No one questioned that. Oh, of course you are. And you bow down. Yes, sir. Yes, madam. Baloney.
Your Grace.
Baloney. You're not a Christian. That wealth is, you don't own it all. You shouldn't. But as long as people say, yes, I guess you do, you're all set. But here we go now digitally. There's such a thing as digital wealth that this morning someone had $100,000 of Bitcoin. This afternoon, they have $12 of Bitcoin. And in about 3 weeks, they'll have $1 million of Bitcoin. Now, how do you run a world economy on that? We're going to have to figure that out, right?
We're going to have, and I think that's the thing, right? So we don't have the answers. That's okay. But some of these will come. Some of these will just die in obscurity, I guess. I mean, Bitcoin is going on longer than I thought. And also Bitcoin, again, is such a beautiful example of how someone somewhere made actually something that was in its element, or in its conception, actually a nice thing, in the sense that it was self-sustaining and it was a leveler and it was for everyone. And but then these consequences that come to it by co-opting it in our regular systems made it very complicated, and the unforeseen things that are happening because of it, because of climate change, the insane amounts of carbon monoxide that we're creating because of it. But it was somebody actually even trying to do something
that out with a good
nice.
I want to do some good in the world. Well,
yeah,
as you know, as a podcast host, unfortunately, one little peek at your time, and you go, damn it, this is
every
fun.
time.
But I do have a budget here of time that I want to know from you what you do. What do you do? Because I haven't asked you that. I just pointed out the people that you have a Happiness at Work podcast. But what do you love doing, Elisa?
Yeah, I think helping people is what is the whole thing.
Yeah.
But the common denominator is people and culture. Anything that leads to a better business culture, I do. As in a sense, that sounds very broad, right? But as a freelancer and I kind of work with other companies to bring better business cultures, whether that is as a facilitator, a meeting designer, or well-being programs or leadership programs to change mindsets. I have sort of put the umbrella of people and culture on it. I mean, that is a very common umbrella, but yeah, everything that will make it a bit more efficient, a bit more human-centered, and supported by AI. So we always talk about people-centered and human-centered leadership, as well as trust-based. Give people trust. That is sort of the basics of it.
You are wading into a pool with your feet on the shallow end, and so it feels pretty good. Yeah, and then suddenly, there's a very deep end, and you're not even sure how deep, but you're able to tread water, and keep going. So I use that as an analogy for this reason. we start to talk about culture and we go, okay, I got culture is the way people allow each other to speak with each other. It's the symbolism around us, the pictures on the desk, all of that.
Yeah.
Got it. I'm going to come in. We're going to address the culture of this workplace.
Yeah.
And boom, there's the deep end. Because there's so much change and the rate of change is so great that even the things that they point to that are holding them together called culture.
Yeah. It's a bad culture, but it's their culture. Mm-hmm.
And it can be knocked loose overnight. Now they need you even more because it's not about
It's a good business model then, actually.
How do we keep the culture we have? It's like, okay, now we need culture, but we got to have a different culture now because work has changed. Where we work, all of that's changed, but we still need culture. So this is the inventor in you and your colleagues, the youthful outlook saying, yeah, there's a lot of uncertainty now, isn't there? We can't even see the depth of culture now. We can't see anymore, but let's go after it. Let's figure it out. In fact, why miss some of the things that we thought was our work culture? Why don't we come up with brand new stuff and engage everyone from the person pushing a broom, to the person pushing the keys. And that's a nice piece of work right there. If you can get people to create the future of their culture.
Yeah. And that's what we definitely do as well. I never come into a company and just say, okay, now you all have to change. Now you have to all do this. And I think that's a lesson I very much learned from being an anthropologist. And I don't think I ever went to Africa and kind of sold people how to do things. But that was a lesson that I saw other people do. And it was like, that is a lesson I very much learned in that scenario already. That is stupid. If there's no scope for change, if people don't want to change, don't bring them the change. But there is obviously a big difference between scale ups and startups who are basically looking for their culture. Is the big people I work people I work with the most, to be honest. And I think at somehow in my career, I really do want to put my teeth into a company that has a long standing tradition and people who have been there for a long time, and see how can we make it better. But then the question really starts with them. What do you want? What do you need? And I think that's actually with everything the case. You always need to know what people need. Never assume, never think that you have the answers. You have so many unconscious biases. You have, almost leaders shouldn't even be making big decisions most of the time. You should just be facilitating them. You should just be making sure that you can make the best decisions, or that the people around you can make the best decisions on the ground. So
what is need? What is need really? Need is unfulfilled. I'm not yet fulfilled in a particular area. I'm hungry. I'm this and that.
Yeah.
But in the working, you've got someone who wants to excel past the AI substitution to demonstrate to themselves and others that their practice it can flourish and they can grow. Now, what does that person need? See, that person needs obstacles removed, reward systems to be re-examined, time to be measured altogether differently. I don't want to work by the hour. I want to work by the outcome. So all those things are so much more compelling when you can go into a workplace and ask people your very good question. What do you need? If you go into that heavily traditionalized, calcified, caramelized company, which probably are a few in Berlin and Germany that you can find like that. What you may ask that worker is, what do you need? And they may say, I need to be treated like a human being.
And that's so valid as well.
There's a starting place for their culture right there. What is it about the culture that this person is treated like a subhuman and this person gets treated like a human? And that's a tough one.
And
That's the deep end. You're going to
yeah.
plunge into that. But boy, if you don't address that and you walk away with your check, okay, and that person still doesn't feel like she is being treated like a human.
Yeah. I
Haven't
think
quite
they're
done the job.
also, I think what's going to be way more important than it was in the future, in the past, and I think we really see that, is very much people seeking out the certain companies that align with them. So you have to be way more deliberate about your culture. If you want to be a more traditional structure, and you want to feel, and you feel that's the space, and that is, I'm not putting any judgment on that. Then that is your prerogative. And I also completely understand if you've been working for 60 years in a certain pattern, and all of a sudden someone's coming in like, hey, we're going to change it all up, and the bean bags, and you know what, something crazy like that feels like a lot, and it's not always necessary.
No.
So making sure that the spaces, I think that's keeping people at the center of it, and that's also beyond the profits and beyond all of these kind of things. First, your people understanding what they need, and can we make some changes? Can we not make changes? It's all about knowing, and also then your cultures can become way more explicit in that sense as well, and then you can also make the decision, hey, that culture is not for me. I've been looking at certain job specs for a blog at a moment, and it's very interesting what you read between the lines or the things that aren't there. You know, the cultures war that existed also in the 50s and the 60s, obviously, but I feel like we make it more explicit. We actually just say, okay, this is what we stand for, and this is how we do it. And that either aligns or it doesn't align. So it gives back some agency to people. And in a time where we lose a lot of agency to AI, to whatever is going on in the world, that's somehow a little bit hopeful and validating, I guess, as well.
Oh my Lord. I've got 2 more hours with you. Maybe I'm going to be coming after you for part 2.
Yeah.
I hope you've enjoyed this
absolutely
fellow podcaster conversation. I admire you and your work. I admire your youth and how quickly you express yourself with great profundity. It's like
There's been a few conversations that have gone in the same direction, and I mean not on podcasts. I mean even with my with my partner and with my friends, where we're just like, whoa, where there is a lot going on, and it's I can now sit here very calmly and say that, but it's also for all of us. There's also times where, or for all of us, for me, it's also times where I go like, oh, yeah, what is next, right? And I it's very scary. Change for people is scary. That was also what we just said. Change for coming in as a consultant and saying, hey, we're going to make things better, and we're going to throw a beanbag in your face, and and that is the least kind of scary change. But even for that, everyone has a frame of reference, and it's very individual, and that's where we as humans, it's hard. We're all different, and change is hard, and
yeah, but
there's so much of it at the moment.
That's the direction, though. I mean, I'm looking at what digitization has done for you and me and tens of millions of other people is it has allowed us to look ahead as an individual and ask ourselves, how do I want to work, with whom, for what reasons? And if I feel like I can't find that in this little patch of earth called my state, I'm going to hook myself up with a company in England who can see my work.
Theoretically, that's possible, but
I'm off doing it.
Our governments won't allow that yet, and that is
it's coming. It's coming. I don't know. I agree.
It's gonna have to, because I like sometimes I can never do, but my sister is in the United States, and I often work with people in the United States in the sense that we do collaborations, because I can never actually do something.
That's right.
And although I would never, I mean, I go to the United States, but I would be in my house in Berlin, and they would be in their house in Iowa, and yet we are actually technically not allowed to do any exchange of money there. And so it
That's
takes
a
a long
German
time
restriction. Yeah.
No, that's an American restriction.
Oh, well, that's
Yeah.
an example of
Yeah.
what we got to change, because
That's because
what
the
you just said
immigration.
to that person in Iowa is, you're not free. You cannot collaborate economically with the person in Germany. You're not free. And if that young person was looking around saying, yeah, I got to pay my bills, and there's nothing right here in Iowa for me.
Yeah.
Yet they want me to work, but I want to stay here, and because I love my animals and so forth, then there will be a point when this country starts being so constipated in our politics, where people say, "Oh, okay, let's remove that restriction." It's not helping
they're
anyone.
more scared of the other side. They're more scared that other people are going to do that and misuse that. So that, because it levels the playing field for everyone. It levels also you can get people from all over the world to come in and take American jobs then. And that is what they're most predominantly afraid of. But actually, if we're really into capitalism and all the things that we proclaim to be, that wouldn't be a problem. The protectionism there.
Right now, we like to watch people bounce. Speaking of Iowa, we like to watch a very talented young woman who can throw a ball about 50 feet into a little tiny hoop. And that's enough competition for us. Please don't make us have to actually find that there's a much more talented, more hungry for change person in Germany who would love to come in here and do what this person is too timid to do. So, but it's going to change.
The
Take
people
it
in
from
power
this
have
white
also
old beard of mine, which I don't have, and it's going to be actually better.
And that's the thing. It all comes from fear first, right? This is why people spend so much time trying to protect the systems that they've created, to be empowered, to continue to be empowered. That's why immigration is very scary, because they might be taking some of that agency that you've spent generations sort of fighting against. And I mean, now we're going on a whole different new path, but but it is a scary one.
Conclude this because our listeners become impatient. But they can only listen for 5 minutes.
They're calling.
I have
already.
something now that I call. I do it every Friday. I call it "Wait a Minute," and I speak for 1 minute about practice, and that's about as long
that
as
is necessary.
People who advise me says that some people will pay attention, but I think a lot of people are going to pay a lot of attention to this conversation. And my last point, though, I promise, it's not only all going to change, but it's going to change very fast. And afterwards, there'll be some floundering worldwide. There'll be some floundering, but then it's going to reconsolidate around the new generation, which is people who are now 15 to 40. And that generation is going to say, you and your brother and others are going to say, I don't know what was going on with them. And
we already say that.
So much crap develop, but we aren't going to be restricted by all those things. We're going to use our imaginations, and we're going to make things work better for everyone.
I hope so. I put more. It's funny because you have more hope for the humanity there and I have more hope for the AI there, because the younger generation, they're going back to this. They're really looking for more conservative values again and all, because they have too much uncertainty. And we'll see. This is all, we just don't know, and that's always been the case. But I know what you're feeling. It's going really fast. And it's like every day the iPhone is being invented again, and everything is just coming in and slamming in doors everywhere, and we're like, we can't keep up. Our brains can literally physically not keep up with all of them. Crazy change. So let alone our government systems and laws and the way we interact sometimes in this world.
My son Dave, who is works at Johns Hopkins University here in the States. He started studying seriously for his doctorate, studied conversation as sort of the melting spot, the place where relationships are formed and broken. And so why don't we look very closely at that? And so over time, we've had a series of episodes that I've folded in, and to the point of what the brain can do. Right now, he and I are, in fact, I've got to edit and put out one we just did. We're looking now at brain versus mainframe.
Output,
brain versus mainframe. You're like,
don't
okay.
compute. Yeah.
And I don't know. I think that the score is still kind of 0 to 0, 10 to 12. But his study of the brain, he's always had fascinated with neuroscience, is that the brain is an amazingly growthful thing. That the brain has only been slightly taxed over the last 4,000 or 5,000 years. So let's just like, this could be it, man. This could be where the brain actually gets to show us what it can do.
It can take over from culture where we are limited now. Then. Then it's a chicken egg there all the time, I think. We'll see. Let's reconvene at some point and see what was right. What was right and what was wrong.
In order to finish this with the correct attribution, say your name for the audience.
As I would say it in a Dutch way, as I was born, Elisa Tuijnder.
Elisa
Tuijnder. I know it is. It's also going to change very soon, but I'll be taking my notes. So it's actually quite nice. It's almost cathartic to do it again.
I love Elisa, and I must say that about 2 episodes or 3 episodes ago, by a wonderful networking coincidence, there is a gentleman named Breck Sanders, who is in Eastern Netherlands teaching and doing his PhD. And when I first saw his name, a colleague said, you should reach out to, I met this person at an action research conference in Italy, you really should reach out to him. The name was Freek. And I said, I don't know, freak? And so right away he said, very politely, he said, you Americans, you're lovely people, but you always look at my name and you think my name is Freak. And it's not even spelled correctly because Freak is Freek.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's Freck.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, thank you again.
Thank you so much. Wonderful. I really, really, really enjoyed this. And have a nice afternoon for you, I'm guessing. For me, it's evening.
You've made my afternoon. You've made me happy.
See, I'm doing my job then. That's nice. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Practice Podcast, conversations probing the nature of practice. If you'd like to hear more, go to Automatic, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube. And please consider purchasing our book on practice as a way of being at mylibrary.world. It's a digital book with lots of features that you do not see in a conventional book. So once again, thank you, and I look forward to you listening again.